Hello, hello, hello. What's up, everybody? How you doing today? I hope you are all doing all right. Looking forward to getting back to some football tomorrow. It's been ages once again, and it's big opportunity tomorrow. And honestly, I'm a little bit worried. I am a little bit worried. Looking at Chelsea there, and the wheels kind of falling off. Rossignol also had a pretty hot start. You know, and then now they're down to 1 win in 5, and I go, is that going to happen to us? Is that what's going to happen? Because we've got two wins in our last 4, 3 and 5, which is good. Drops to 2 and 5 if we don't get a result tomorrow. But we have a little bit of space. We have an opportunity. We could pull 6 points ahead of Chelsea. It's a big one. But how y'all doing? Hope you're all well. What's going on? Levi, Saivras, Banter, JRS, Yasser, Silly, 50. What's up, my friend? Ramon, yes. I hope you're well too. Thank you. James as well. But yeah, I'm just a little bit worried. But let me start off by just saying, of course, Arsenal come through and in the end and get themselves another 3 points. They played a bad game. Everton were once again better than them. Pickford makes a horrible mistake. Gyökeres gets another tap in an empty net. And then Dauman, fair play to the kid. He was the difference maker for Arsenal. They're getting bailed out by a 16-year-old who comes on and shows a little bit of creativity, a little bit of flair, and a little bit of bravery when the rest of the team has had it stamped out of them. And I look at that and go, man, what a shit. It's a shame. It's a shame, but at the same time, it's also like not really a surprise, you know? And I mean, good for the kid for what it's worth. You know, it's good to see young players succeeding in football wherever they come from. Frankly, it is. It's such a hard thing to do, and I think the Premier League really needs exciting young talents who don't have the game coached out of them, who don't have football coached out of them. And I think Dauman looks like one of those players, and I think JJ Gabriel will look like one of those players. And you know, hopefully in the future we have the duel between Gabriel and Dauman as two of the best players in the Premier League. You know, pure ballers going out there and doing it. You know what I mean? I'll be happy in the future if that's the case. That would be good for football. That would be good for the game as well. So fair play to the kid for that, and congratulations on becoming the youngest goal scorer in Premier League history. I'm not gonna talk down on a 16-year-old doing it, because it's just good for the game to have people like that in football. It just is. And it's been missing for a long time. But, you know, Everton should have won that game. But they won't. But they did. They shouldn't have. They should have won the game, but they didn't. They should have won the game. They didn't. They hit the post. They had some crazy shots cleared off. They had great attempts. It's just crazy. You know what I mean? But so be it. That's football. Arsenal play terrible football and somehow still pull it off. I've seen people say, would you be complaining if you were United fans? Have you met United fans? Arsenal played bad football for Arteta's been there for ages. They've been winning no trophies. They've played very boring, poor football for long stretches of time under there. We panic and freak out and sack our manager when we're 12 league positions higher because we don't play with enough attacking intent. Yes, the United tax on style is massive. No United fans would not be happy with years and years of playing like this. They just wouldn't. I'm sorry. We can't stand it for a single season. We are incapable as United fans of dealing with the type of rebuild and the type of the whole process that Arteta and Arsenal have gone through. And I'm not saying that we should be okay with it, but yeah, United fans would complain. You know what I mean? United fans would absolutely complain, and we would absolutely be unhappy with it. You know, I'm not saying if we were winning a title, we'd be unhappy with it, but we would never get anywhere near 7 years of watching that kind of football. It would never happen. It would never happen. We can't handle it. So, yeah, I do feel we have a right to complain because we've had to deal with all the drama around our team, down to things like style, down to things like that you just don't have at these other clubs. You just don't get it at these other clubs. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. They don't have those kind of extra. We've talked about this so much all season. There's an extra standard at United. And it's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people presently do have doubts about Michael Carrick, because with the first couple of games, you're going, wait, that looks good. It's exciting. It's fun. It's free flowing. But once teams settle and you start to go, is there a style? It's not very attacking. Not very exciting. It's actually kind of maybe less exciting than what we were doing earlier on in the season. And it is. And people are already having major doubts because of that, even though we're still getting about 2 points per game. So, yeah, and we don't have a good midfield, and we have all these issues that we still need to solve. So I do think that we have there's a massive extra layer of difficulty. I mean, we beat Arsenal, we beat City, and I think if you ask the fan base right now, it'd probably be less than 50% who would say, give the job to Michael Carrick. He should get it. You know what I mean? Anyway, it is what it is. The United tax, the United crown weighs heavy, and it's hard. And there is a higher standard. There is a higher calling for United to be greater, to be better, to be different to what some of these other teams are doing. Maybe there shouldn't be, but there is, and it has to be accepted. So, but regardless, that's why we have to sit and suffer and watch Arsenal win as the least entertaining team, probably of the Premier League era. We're just talking about that in the chat for a minute. I'm sure they're not the worst team in terms of talent and performance, but they certainly are the least entertaining by far. It's not even close, frankly. I mean, City have had some boring teams, but yeah. All right. Besides that, we did get a favor done to us here. We did have a bit of a favor, which is that, of course, Chelsea have lost again and have only won one in their last 5 games. They have only lost one in their last. They've only won one in their last 5 games. We take a look at the table now. Chelsea sitting on 48 points. They're level with Liverpool, who have a game, of course, against Spurs. Is it tomorrow? Tottenham tomorrow. They play. So they'll probably win that, and Spurs are going to be in. Jesus Christ, look at Spurs. Holy. I know it's been bad, but look at this, man. That is an absolutely unbelievable. Oh my God. I've not seen that in the Premier League. I mean, I think maybe Wolves had a run like that, but good God. But yeah, Liverpool, not in the greatest shape themselves, but they turned things around a little bit. They got done over by the Wolves Magic recently. Huge game here against Villa. Look at this. Look at this. This is the crazy part, right? I swear to God, every single year this happens. As you get into the final 10 games, it's not so much. I swear I've seen this in this chase for Champions League in the Premier League for like every single year since like Ollie. The final games of the year, the 7 to 9 games for Champions League, are not a sprint to the finish, a sprint to the top, a dogged race to the top. It's teams shitting the bed left and right, and who shits the bed less gets into Champions League, right? We always see it that way, that it's going to be like this race, this like firing finish, and then what actually happens is everybody starts losing and dropping points left and right, and it gets crazy, it gets chaotic. Everybody's shit, but somebody will get a couple wins and stay above the others, and everybody else falls apart. It happens every year, and we always go, wait, what's happening here? You know, it's always like that. I was just reminded of that when I was looking at the table right now, which to me is a little bit of positivity. We fell in, most of the time, barring I think one season, we were like stumbling, bumbling, and all of that into Champions League at the end, and somehow we magically made it. Even in Ollie's interim, you guys remember Ollie's interim? We had that really hot start, and it was like, holy shit, we could get Champions League. And then, like, we were losing game after game after game, and we couldn't buy a win, and we were still in it. And we were still capable because teams kept losing around us. And you know what killed us? You guys remember the game that killed us? It was David De Gea spilling a shot against Chelsea that finished us in the Champions League race. And then there was like 3 or 4 games left in the season. It was like right at the end. David De Gea spills a shot from outside the box. Chelsea get the rebound and score. We lose that game. We flip it. And then from there, we were screwed on. That was like a game where if we had won that, I think we would have come back right up into the Champions League positions. And that happened. And I remember that going, like, that was the moment I remember being with De Gea, like, it's on its way. It's on its way down. You know, it took a long time before De Gea left, but remember the next season, everybody was calling for Dean Henderson to play. He played while De Gea was gone, I think, with the baby. It was next season or season afterward, De Gea was having his baby. And then De Gea came back, and then we got stories about how Dean Henderson was promised to play, but then all he got was scared of upsetting De Gea or the dressing room and all the drama that came around that, I remember. But that was the moment. And then in Leicester, after lockdown, we were like losing, and then final day we beat Leicester, right? And look at last season, right? Aston Villa were falling apart, still had a chance at the final day and lost it. And because they lost it, I think it propelled Newcastle into Champions League. Something like that happened. Yeah, Henderson got COVID or whatever. Anyway, it was a crazy time. He got the flu or he got COVID. That's right. It was something like that. But every year it's like that. You get just like these crazy moments of the end of the season is almost like a race to the bottom rather than a race to the top. And I feel like that's where we're at again, right? 0 wins and 4 for Aston Villa. 1 and 5 for 4th and 5th. 1 win and 5 for 4th and 5th. And both us and Liverpool lost our last game against 10 men, Newcastle, and against bottom of the table Wolves, right? So it's like, it kind of goes like that. And that's why I look at this game and I'm like, warning, like I'm nervous because I look at Chelsea. They started off so well under Rossignol, and then it's completely fallen apart. And we've pulled the wins out because we have a better team in these games, right? We pulled wins out against Palace and Everton and these games because we were better than them. But I do get a little bit nervous about that, looking at it and saying, can we pull ahead a little bit? But I guess the thing we have to look at is that in a positive sense is that nobody is going to have to win. Like, one team's going to fall out. That was Newcastle's cup final. You're not wrong, but look at Newcastle since then. I don't necessarily... You know what? I do think you're wrong. I'll say why I do think you're wrong. Newcastle went into Barcelona and slapped them. They were the much better side. Barcelona extremely lucky to walk away with that game level. They absolutely slapped the shit out of Barcelona. They were so much better than them. Then they go to Chelsea, bam, win 1-0 as well. They kind of woke up a little bit, it feels like, from that game. That does happen with United. You remember Wolves, when we beat them 4-1, they've completely changed since that game. Completely changed. And now Newcastle have done the same. The 2 games they've played since beating us, they've been really good. Really, really good. They were better than Barcelona, the best team in La Liga. It's a weird weekend, right? Because City got absolutely destroyed by Madrid. Chelsea get battered by PSG, but that's not to be surprised. Chelsea are shit, right? But then Newcastle destroyed Barcelona performance-wise. So there's this whole thing, Premier League teams are shit now. Premier League teams are actually bad. They played, but then I look at it and go, well, hang on a second. Let's back up here, okay? City got blown away. You know, that does happen. It's a weird thing on occasion. But Newcastle were the much better side against Barcelona in general, you know, who might be one of the favorites for the Champions League. So I don't know. Football's just a strange game. But Newcastle, to be fair, Newcastle did to Barcelona what they did to us. They out-physicaled their midfield, because you do get weaker midfields in Spain. You do get the physical problems that you get in Spain. But Newcastle's forwards are just not good enough. They're just terrible. They just blow it on every opportunity to actually make something happen, you know? So, but that physicality is there. That physicality is absolutely there, and it definitely helped Newcastle in that as well. But speaking of Newcastle, and then, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about our game and all of that too. This is interesting, right? I've been telling you that his agent's been offering him around. So Sandro Tonali's agent gave an interview where he was asked specifically about City or Arsenal, but he says this. More importantly, it's these words in particular. Exactly. That was the goal from the moment he went to England, to try to make him a star player. I think he's an Italian football with one of the highest values in the world. He is talking like, again, it's time to move on from Newcastle. Newcastle was a stepping stone to get to one of the biggest clubs in England after that, to get to one of the top teams in England. And I think there's a fair few players who will see Newcastle that way this summer, and that's part of the challenge that they're going to face. But Tonali's agent and people since the start of the year, since in this season with how it's going, are really looking to get him out. Really looking to get him out, and he's going to be expensive. He's going to be tough. I don't know that we'll be able to get him, but he's definitely trying to move. Don't think we can get... Yeah, I feel it's going to be really tough, I'll be honest. And I do think Tonali does deserve to play at a better club. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a very solid player. Good at a lot of things. Now, I would kind of put him a step below some of the other guys. But, yeah, like Anderson and these types of guys. But still, I think he is very good. He is very good. He's a good player. I would definitely take him. A lot will depend on salary demands. Yeah. You don't like that red flag? Well, look, there are red flags about Tonali, right? One, the incident where he was banned, obviously. The strong pushing out of Newcastle. Now, look, there's a difference between pushing out of Newcastle and pushing out of United. Big difference. On the totem pole, we kind of talked about this yesterday. Look, United are still United, and it is still a bigger move. It is still a huge place. It's still a spot where you would be happy to land. It's still the potential top end to make your name, to make something of yourself, to become somebody. Newcastle is still all the way at the very top. But still, it is a little bit strange. It's a little off. It's a lot of noise around a player. A lot of noise around a player. So you have to say on that front, fair enough. Yeah, if he's going to be 100 million and 500K a week, I would have my nerves about United getting involved in that kind of deal for Tonali, because I think it's very risky in that sense as well. You think Tonali will go to Arsenal? I could definitely see that. He definitely was offered to them, and they thought about it, or even considered it. But Newcastle were like, hell no, we're not selling in January. We'll come back to this in summer. How are you guys feeling in the chat right now? Tell me. We've had a lot of news the last couple of weeks. I've shared what I know about things, a lot of different things. But there's so much up in the air. Nobody for sure, I think, can say right now who we're going to sign or not sign. Who do you think we'll get? If you think we're getting 2 signings this summer in the midfield, which I think we will. Let's assume that, because I think we could pretty much assume that. Who do you think we're going to get? I don't necessarily want to poll it. I just want to see your responses in the chat on this. Who do you think we're going to get? Who are the 2 midfielders you think we'll get? Like actually, not who do you want? Who do you think we're going to get this summer? Which 2? Tell me your answers. Tell me what you think, because I'm curious, like, where things stand at the moment. Like, what do people believe? Where are people at? Not who you want. Who do you think we're going to get in the end? Not who do you want? Anderson, Baleba. You think we will get them? Baleba, Gomez. I think a lot of people are on the Baleba, Gomez train right now, thinking, well, that's what we might end up with. Baleba, Nagume, Anderson and Gomez, Gomez and Baleba, Anderson and Fernandez, Baleba, Ederson, Baleba, Fernandez, Baleba and Gomez, Baleba and Fernandez, Baleba and some random player, Gomez and Baleba, Baleba, Gomez. Casemiro extension. Well, that's not happening. No idea. Camavinga, Gomez. Camavinga, Baleba. Camavinga, Fernandez. Gomez, Baleba. Gomez, Baleba. The most common answer I can tell by far is Baleba and Gomez, right? And logically, and then there's a lot of Fernandez mixed in there. And we don't have a lot of believers in Anderson, right? A lot of people don't think we'll get Anderson. So, very few think Wharton, Fernandez. The 3 most common names, I think, are Baleba, Fernandez, and Gomez right now. And I look at that and I go, why, right? Why is that? Well, for reasons mentioned. I did one on Baleba this week. Obviously, I will do some videos on in the next week. I'll do videos on Gomez. I'll do videos on Fernandez, Camavinga, and other people. And I go, well, why? Because the perception is that we might be able to get those players for cheap. If West Ham go down, if there's a clause in Fernandez's contract, he might be available for 30 to 40 million. If Gomez goes down, he's probably going to be available for 30, 40 million. Those are good value players at 30 to 40 million. Let's be real. But I think the problem we're all feeling is that first signing, right? The Anderson or Tonali, that we're not confident in getting Champions League yet. We're not confident in finishing in where we need to yet. We're not confident in, being able to convince or that we'll win the races for those players, understandably. And then there's Baleba. Baleba not even included in Brighton's squad right now. And when you look at that, as I've been saying there, Brighton don't, as I kind of shared recently, Brighton don't really have an interest in seemingly turning the Baleba situation around. I firmly believe they're going to head towards cashing in this summer. And I think they'll just bite the bullet, and they'll still ask for a decent amount. But not 100 million, 80 million or anything like that, because absolutely nobody's going to pay that. But I think they're going to look at it and say, for us, it's too risky to hold on to this and hope it turns around and turn down 60 million this summer. And I think that's what United are banking on happening, is that. And I think people see that, the writing on the wall there with Baleba. And obviously, I think people are concerned about the risk with that. From a United standpoint too, it's definitely got a concern. I mean, Baleba today wasn't even in the squad, but he did travel. He was not injured. He was just not included. So, when I said, look, from what I've heard, Brighton really aren't trying to turn things around with him. They're not really interested in fixing the situation. It's clear as day. The coach doesn't like him. The coach doesn't rate him. Now, does that mean that he's good and that's okay and it's just all positives? No, there's risk in that, but there's also potentially just the case that he doesn't. United fans should be to a degree understanding of this. I know people here are a little more balanced on the Manu takes, but a lot of people out there were saying, we're looking at Kobbie Mainoo. Well, he was valued at 40 to 60 million by United too, and looking to set, and then they could have sold him and he could have moved on. And he didn't have a place under the prior manager. And a lot of people are saying, no, he's an amazing player. He just doesn't have a place at a prior manager. But then you flip it on the other side, and I see a lot of those same people going, Baleba shit, can't get in with the coach, can't play, not worth the money. You might be right. And there's people with more balanced views who are saying, yeah, well, there's concerns about all of these situations. But I do see it as a bit of a similar situation to Kobbie Mainoo's. You know, a lot of people liked Garnacho too. That's true. You know what I mean? But I just find it a little ironic in that sense. You know, how people look at it, because if anything, you should be able to understand it. I mean, we were playing Omari Forson over Amad Diallo. And I remember, you know, a lot of people saying, well, he must be shit then. You know what I mean? Well, he's not, obviously, you know? And now most people wouldn't sell him for 80 million, frankly. And they would, Ahmad's like a guy everybody would want to keep. And I look at that and I go, sometimes it does happen with young players like this. And it's about whether it's worth the gamble to get them, and how confident you are in your feeling that they are going to turn into who they could be. You know what I mean? And I look at that and I go, yeah, fair enough. There's always risk. There's always these things. I've seen enough of our own situation, our own players, and our own club do this with players to go, just because they're not making it right now doesn't mean that they're a bad player. And somebody might see that risk and see a gem to pluck out of there. And in that sense, I still see why Baleba is an appealing player, because physically he's got all of the tools. You know, physically he's just got the tools. He does. He's still one of the best defenders to shield the back line in football right now. He is. He still is. And he physically has the tools. So can you coach the rest out of him again? It's interesting. It's funny that people here have this take while also not rating the Brighton manager nor the current squad. There's that too, right? Apparently the Brighton manager's doing a shit job. Their squad is bad, but Baleba is the problem or something at the same time. Like it's always funny because we're all 100% prone to this. Every one of us do it. But we'll sit there and we'll have takes about United that are so hypocritical compared to our takes about players and situations at other teams. We don't see it. When we're looking at our own team, we see it. When we're looking at other teams, we don't see it. And it's often the exact same thing that people are up in arms about that's happened at United, or the exact same populist take at United that gets applied totally differently at another club when you're looking at it from the outside. And I think I just think it's a funny thing about it. I'm not even, I've got my concerns and such with Baleba, but like his situation is almost identically comparable right now to maybe Kobbie Mainoo's or Ahmad's, what we went through. That the majority of fans still rated them while they were at United. But we're incapable of getting beyond the blinders when we're looking at another club, because we don't follow it in the same way. We don't know the ins and outs of it in the same way. We don't have the history with it, you know? So it makes for an interesting one. That's not to say I'm sure it's going to work out. I just find it up to be a very similar situation. It's the same with Camavinga. You know, like I look at that Madrid team and I go, sure, all right, well, Camavinga wasn't in the team that won 3-0. But like, people will sit there and say, okay, but he's shit. Well, no. He plays a ton of minutes, does well, in a team that is still capable of blowing away Man City. Like, you look at that situation, they've gone through coach chaos. They have Xabi Alonso, they have Arriola, like they have chaos at the manager front, chaos in the way that they're rebuilding their team, and a young player who's only 23 is a little bit on the outs. Doesn't make him a bad player just because of that. Doesn't make him a flop. Doesn't make that. Like, we got to be able to expand our horizons in the way that we analyze and look at things. So I feel the same way about Camavinga and Baleba in that sense. Like, there's risks with them, but I think that they're just too written off at this point in time. Way, way, way too written off at this point, considering the situations that surround their club if you kind of dive into it. So there's a lot of options. And like I was saying yesterday, I'm not really unhappy with any. I also really like João Gomez. I think as a second signing, João Gomez is the most sensible signing in the entirety of Europe this year. If Wolves go down and he's available for 40 million, João Gomez is the most sensible signing any team could make for a 6 from a cost value perspective. It's just so simply good. He's a good player, consistent player, Premier League experience, still has room to grow. Great defensively, good on the ball, good value, good attitude, hard worker, fighting his ass off to help Wolves despite their situation. Like, there's not a lot of red flags there. As a solid player who's an occasional starter, Gomez is such a common sense move. It kills me why, like, it should be much more urgent in that sense. You know what I mean? Of like, I'm looking at that cost and going, it's a no-brainer to get him. If you need sixes, it's a no-brainer. It just is. It just makes total sense. So I like that, but obviously the first signing is one that concerns people a little bit more. Baleba and Gomez is pretty overwhelming though. Well, it depends, right? If you had asked people at the end of last summer, Baleba and Gomez, I think people would have been ecstatic and said, we've rebuilt our midfield. Baleba was like viewed as the best player, but now he's not. You know, there's a risk. There's no doubt a risk in the Baleba deal being your marquee summer signing. No doubt about that. There's a big risk in that right now, or at least there's a perceived one. But if it works, then it's fantastic. If it works, then it turns out really well. It's all dependent on how Baleba turns out. If that's our summer, Baleba and Gomez in the midfield, and Baleba turns out how we all thought he could at the end of last summer, it's a great summer. It actually is amazing. You get two really, really good sixes to hold down the fort for the next 8 years. You know? If not, then it turns. It's fun. I mean, that's all transfers, though, right? It all comes down to how it works. It all comes down to how it works. You know, at the end of it, if Baleba fulfills his potential, then it works. We need a tall 6. I don't know. We're gonna have a tall center back in Lenny. We need another tall center back. I don't think we necessarily need tall midfielders across the board. I'm not particularly worried about that. There's other players. There's other players out there when we're adding onto our midfield. If we get a third one, you know, for selling Ugarte, then that works. When Bruno leaves, we need another one. You know, so we probably need 3. You could add some height elsewhere, but I don't know. You know, people say that we need height, but then people look at PSG and go, well, they're the best midfield in the world.
We need a passer from deep.
You still think we need a passer from deep? Well, yeah, I mean, but there's the conundrum with Kobbie Mainoo. He's never going to be a passer from deep. I think we need to switch to a 3-man midfield. Either way. So that Kobbie Mainoo can be the more advanced of the midfielders in a flat 3 for his future. I think that's where his future lies, clearly. I don't think he's going to be ever a deep midfielder in a pivot because there's too many limitations. You have to have a super athlete who can also pass. Where does that exist? Who's the super athlete that can pass? That's my question. Who is that? Who's a super athlete that can pass? Elliot Anderson is the closest to it. Tonali's not really a top passer. He's a very good dribbler, not a top passer. Wharton is a top passer, also cannot run for shit. You know? Who's this hyper athlete who also passes? Well, the answer, by the way, is Camavinga, but people don't want to hear that right now. That's why I think Camavinga is such a potentially good signing, because Camavinga is a do-it-all player with a very, very high athletic ceiling as well. in that sense. Which would be why I'd be interested in him. Same with Tchouaméni, for what it's worth. I'd be interested in both of them for that reason. But there's not a ton of bigger athletic midfielders who also pass the ball really, really well. You know? So you trying to match it all up in terms of balance is a bit crazy in that sense. That's tough. It's tough. You know what I mean? It's tough. But I think in the long term, a 3 kind of makes sense. I don't think Tonali's a bad passer, but I don't think progressive passing is necessarily his game. I don't think it is at all. I think Kabi is an advanced midfielder at the end of the day. I think that's what he's got to be in his best role to utilize his skill set. Put him as an advanced midfielder and put them together, you know, and put together a midfield behind him that has passing, dribbling, defensive work, or next to him in sort of a flat setup. I think in the long term, that's the way to go. You know, that's the reality of it. We have a team of number 10s. We do have a ton of number 10s. Bruno, Cobb. I still think in essence, Bruno and Kabi are competing for the same position. Because even though they're not at all the same player, in terms of balance, you have a hard time putting both of them in the team. You always are going to have some deficiencies doing that. So I think that in some ways they are competing for the same role long term. You know, that's the truth. How's Phil? Feels good. Feels good. Feels good guy. Feels a good guy. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just a little bit interesting. It's interesting. I think there's a lot to debate on the midfield front, but it is interesting that the takeaway that everybody has right now is Baleba and Gomez are going to be the ones. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. I think people think we're going to get bargains. I think people think we're going to get bargains. Bruno and Kabi would need prime Conte to work long term. Not even that would work. You got to remember that Conte played a lot next to Manu Matic, a deep lying playmaker in essence type of player, tall, strong, one of the best dribblers in football, also good in making line breaking passes and things like that. Yeah, you need Yaya Toure, exactly. That's actually the answer. Like that's what you're talking about to make that midfield work. You know, you need Matic and Conte to play behind a Kabi or a Bruno is sort of your ideal setup. You know, we kind of almost had that at times. That's actually why McFred and Bruno was our most winning midfield. He played next to Jorginho and Matic, two players who did a bit more of the deeper sitting defensive duties with more line breaking passive. Yeah, not just Matic, obviously, but with Jorginho as well. And that worked balance wise really well. But yeah, I mean, if you look at it, McFred was like Matic, Conte light, if you think about it, and emphasis on light. Okay. But Fred, the energy ball running around, Scott, the taller dribbler behind Bruno. There's a reason that worked balance wise. It was the most similar to that. And yes, it was a light version. Matic, Herrera, Pogba, similar to that as well, where Herrera would go around doing the dirty work. Matic could sit, Pogba could play make. There is a balance there that makes sense. We just didn't get to see it enough. Scott, Fred, Bruno was also like that. Balance-wise, it was similar, but again, emphasis on light. But a similar style of midfield. But we need a similar balance in this team at all, in general. I still see Elliot Anderson as the 8, right? And it's a concern. I still see Elliot Anderson as the 8. And that's why I think we need a 6. Even if we sign Anderson, like I don't think Anderson, you can drop him next to Kabi Menu and the midfield is fixed with Bruno. In fact, I think it would be a disaster. I think we'd look at it and we'd go, we fixed our midfield. It's great. Everything's wonderful. And then it goes to shit again. Because we're going to get completely bypassed in so many ways. Because Anderson's going to want to get up. He's going to want to run around. He's going to want to do a lot of the work. But you still don't have a sitter. You still don't have that deeper guy. And you're neutering Elliot Anderson if you ask him to sit. he needs to run around. He needs to work. He needs to utilize his engine to get around the pitch. And so I think the feeling is there that he might come, if he came, he'd be potentially in place of, same Ugarte problem for a different player, but same problem. Exactly that, Cliff. Ugarte, you put him as a 6. It's a disaster. Obviously, Anderson wouldn't be that bad because he's a much, much better player. But Ugarte's never been a 6 either. And we signed him and then stuck him at 6 and it doesn't work. And we go, what happened? Well, no, because he's never been a 6. He should be running around with the cover behind him like Casemiro, which is, yes, Casemiro, Ugarte, Bruno is our most balanced midfield. Truthfully, it is. It's the same style. It's why it worked in the whole Europa campaign. Why we ditched it to this day, I don't have the answer. I think we win the finals if we had done that. But regardless, it doesn't mean it's the right thing. It's just we need the right balance in that sense. And it leads to a bit of a concern. It does indeed lead to a bit of a concern because if you look at, if you look at things in general, if we look at things in general, there's a bit of a concern here. And I believe this is a big reason why people don't believe that we'll get Anderson and why he might get pushed to City. Well, one, stellar group, Marmoush at City, Ait Nouri at City, all of that, right? But here's a bigger problem. One of Stellar's CAA base's biggest clients is also Kobbie Mainoo. Are you pushing Elliot Anderson to bench your other talent and the only player you actually have at United besides, I think, Luke Shaw, who you're obviously not getting any value with in the future? It's a concern. It's a concern. How low is Luke Shaw's value nowadays? And I believe this is where there's an additional bit of noise about City because you have a situation where Elliot Anderson's agents, if they push him to United, it's going to diminish the value of their other player at United, their other big asset at United. From an agent perspective, they do think about these things. They do consider these and they do factor these things in. They totally do. That's their job. I've said a lot about agents over the last year, but that's their job. That's what they do. And then you have to add to that just one more factor in all of this, right? Which is, of course, that, that's part of the concern. That's part of the concern. But you have to add into that they have another one here, and that's Eduardo Camavinga, who could be on the move as well this summer. Same agency. So if they're trying to place a few players at different places, logically, pushing for Camavinga to come in and play next to Kobbie, which does balance a lot better, by the way. From their interests, their best interest would be to push Anderson to City and Camavinga to United. That's what would be in the best interests of the agency in looking at the way that they highlight the profile of all of their players. You've joined a Patreon, but there's no new posts on it. It's all on Discord, Dylan. So if you have a Discord account, join, link it. Everything is in Discord. Dude, the Patreon chat, the Patreon page itself is there. There's some stuff on it. But the things I put there are a little more irregular because there's reasons for that, unfortunately, just for our own consideration. But most everything happens in Discord. But if you need help, message me. It's not like you have to do a bunch of stuff to access it. It's pretty easy. You link your account and it pops you in. And then there's a set of channels and such where updates and chats and things are, okay? If you need any help, message me. Reach out to me on Patreon to do that, and I'll help you out. But that's essentially part of the challenge that we're probably dealing with here this summer in all of this. And I think that people really underrate the amount that this goes on in football, that these discussions, that these feelings of agents and things like that change the direction of players and courses of their career. I mean, look at Chelsea. Look at how many agents have brought players to Chelsea because of it. And Stellar Group and CA based, the same thing, but sort of separate still in a sense, are big in directing their clients' careers and things like that. Again, it's their job. No worries, Dylan. Not everybody knows, and I try to make it clear on some of the posts, but no worries at all. But yeah, it is an interesting situation there, on that. In terms of, yeah, he is. Yeah, it's an interesting situation how you put all this together and what makes a lot of sense. And that is the biggest reason why I feel maybe we won't get Elliot Anderson. I still don't think the wages thing is the biggest issue there. Not from anything that I've heard as of yet. But I also believe that, that's going to have an influencing factor on it in general. So we have to think about that, worry about that a little bit. That's certainly a part of the consideration of it, and why I don't think I don't think it's unusual, or I don't think it's unfair to say and look at these other names and say, yeah, it's more likely. I think Camavinga, Baleba, Gomez, Buwadi might be more possible, more likely still at this point in time. Delap, by the way, my goodness, you couldn't have said it better. Delap, by the way, my goodness, how shit is that guy? Boy, did we dodge a bullet there. Even Gyökeres, our other target. There's one thing I'll say about Gyökeres that I've said before. Like, he hasn't been good in the Premier League. But one, he doesn't fit Arsenal at all. Still a very strange buy, and poor decision making from him, honestly, to go there, but he might win a title. And two, he still has good instincts as a striker when he's struggling. You can laugh and shit about the tap-ins, and he scores ugly goals, tap-ins, easy ones. Still have to be there. Højlund was never there for tap-ins. Bad strikers are never there for tap-ins. Bad strikers don't score tap-ins. Instincts are still a part of the game. And with Gyökeres, even when he was crap, I pretty much... He's going to get goals one way or another because he does have good instincts. He clearly can't bully players in the same way he used to. He clearly doesn't have the technical skills compared to the league. It's fallen off a lot. But he does still have good positioning and instincts. And he will continue to score key goals because of that. And he scored a very key goal today for Arsenal. Yes, it's a tap-in. Doesn't matter. You have to be there to score them. We've seen us never be there for tap-ins for years when we didn't have good strikers. Bad strikers don't score those goals. He's not good, but he's not that bad. And any striker who's going to end with 11 to 15 goals, which is what I expected he would get, would be about 15 by the end of the season, isn't a bad player. I'm glad we got Šeško because in the end, I think we've got the best player of the striker core this summer, for sure. But yeah, definitely a lot better than Liam Delap, that's for sure. No doubt about that. Good God. Don't know what the hell's going on there. Højlund backheel flash. A lot of Højlund flashbacks of the ball flying across the front of the 6-yard box and him standing there going, what do you mean? Crash the box, man. Or grinding on someone or something like that, Anyway, gosh, a lot of negative memories of the last few years, huh? Yeah, dummying tap-ins and stuff. God, could you imagine, man? Can you imagine? But anyway, all right. In other news here that we have, just speaking about this game, Mason Mount expected to return to the Manchester United squad against Aston Villa tomorrow. Carrick said he returned to training. Sully tells us he's expected to return to the squad. I imagine replacing Taro Malacia. The 27-year-old has trained with the first team in recent days, and Carrick expected to include him, barring any last-minute changes. Obviously won't start, but I think that Mason Mount is a very useful player off the bench. Maybe if we just keep him off the bench for the rest of the season, he won't get injured anymore. Because clearly, anytime he starts for any run of games, he just gets hurt. I still think he's a quality player that can make an impact. If we can figure out just how to keep him healthy for 9 games coming off of the bench, I'd rather see him any day than some of the other guys. Any day than some of the other guys. So I am glad that Mason Mount is back. I really like him as a player. It's such a damn shame about the injuries. There's no doubt about it. It is a damn shame about it because I still think positionally, pressing-wise, tactically, he's one of the most useful players out there. But what can you do? Whether he leaves this summer, I don't see how that United will be able to sell him, but maybe a loan, an option. We have a lot of 10s. We have a lot of forwards. Maybe he'll be just secondary to demands and all of that. So whatever. It is what it is, but hopefully, if you look at that game we played against Newcastle, I would have much rather seen Mason Mount come on than Malacia. Maybe that game ends differently as well. So off the bench, 20, 30 minutes. Hopefully he can make kind of some sort of impact there. As a reminder, this is the team you all voted for yesterday, you silly billies. You voted for no changes. Where was I? I wanted to look at. You voted for no changes to the team that lost to 10 men. You voted no changes to the team that lost to 10 men at Newcastle. And I don't buy it. If we go no change, it might work. It might work, to be honest. I have no idea to predict this team anymore. But this team lost to 10 men Newcastle. And you're expecting, and you don't want to change anything? Does anybody feel differently today than they voted yesterday? I'm not going to repoll the whole thing, but let's do one poll. Let's do one poll. Because I feel like you guys were on crack yesterday. Would you guys keep it or change it today? That's my question. Because I swear to God, people want changes, but then everybody voted for the same team. And it wasn't even close. The midfield was 80%. Mbeumo Ahmad was kind of close, but then Cunha got over Ahmad by 90%. And Šeško was 90%. Now people want changes. Now we want changes. All right, okay. Change what? Here's two changes I'd be open to making. Here's my first change. Are you ready? Here's my first change. You can say you don't like this. I don't care. Here's my first change. Okay? Because what's the difference? It's a like for like out of possession, but you're getting more with the ball. There you go. That's my change. That's it. It's that simple. I can't see why it would be worse. You get more defensive work to help you with legs here, and you just get a better player in the midfield. And you still get Cunha in the center. And you get Cunha in the center where he's always going to be. Why is it worse? I want someone to tell me why it's worse. Why is it worse? What is worse about this than the other team? What did we lose? What did we lose? What did we lose by making this change? I mean it. I like real world talk. And you could say, this is Cobby hate. No, it's not. He's just a better player. Bruno's just a better player than Cobby. We all know that. Obviously he is. And it gets Ahmad on the pitch. What did we lose by making this change from the previous team? Just anything that we lost. That's it. What did we lose? In the real world? Nothing. Nothing. We didn't lose anything. We've only gained. Nothing changed midfield-wise. Nothing changed defensively. We just got a bit more progression from deep, and we got Ahmad for more legs onto the field. I don't think we've lost anything. At all. You know, putting Ugarte on doesn't get Ahmad on. We lose shape because Bruno leaving his position to get involved. What do you mean? Bruno drops deep anyway. Bruno's been dropping deep all fucking year, man. No matter where he plays, he drops deep. You know, we were against 10 men, right? But look at where a lot of his passes come from. If you compare the pass maps, I mean, he made as many or far more progressive passes from deep than Cobby did. He dropped back to do that because he's just better at it. Casemiro at the 10 is just going to do it anyway. That team cannot defend. This team can? This team just scored 2 goals on them by a 10-man side. This team can defend? Where? The defending is all in the back. This team can't defend. There's no worse defensively. In fact, adding Ahmad in gives you more defensively. There's no difference. I don't see the difference. Honestly, I don't see what we've lost from what we've seen in the last couple of games. I just don't see what we've lost. I don't get it. I think people just don't want to say drop Cobby because it's like you'll be attacked ruthlessly for suggesting that he's not the greatest talent to grace the earth and should start every game from here to the end of time. There's just no... I think people are... You know what's funny? I was thinking about this. Football discussion is so akin to politics. It's all populism, and it works. If you are a populist, it works. If you're just be a populist. Don't say anything that isn't popular. Go with the flow. And I see so many accounts, so many YouTubers, and so many people that just are such bullshitters because they're just populists, and they just follow the populist formula. Just be scared. Don't ever say anything that people might get upset about, like to suggest that maybe we shouldn't always play Cobby Mainoo every game. Just don't even suggest it because you might get in trouble with the populist take, even though it's the correct take. There's no defending there, Sage. Who's defending? Who's defending? Where's the defending? We traded Bruno for Mainoo. It's the same amount of defending. It's the same amount. And we added Ahmad. It's more defending. You know? It's more. If you suggest Ugarte come on for Casemiro, that's more defending, so let's do that. Would you be open to that, Sage? Would you be open to that? Would you be open to that, Casemiro Ugarte? Would you be open to that? There's your defending. You know? Last game of the season last year, we played with Bruno and Casemiro midfield against Villa. Correct, we did. Yes, and we won. We did win that game. I mean, there was a couple lucky things. They got a red card, but we just lost to a team with a red card. Why can't Kuhn can progress the ball, play in the middle? I agree. What are you talking about, Cliff? What do you mean? Used to say people attack you due to other reasons for your ideas? What do you mean? City score, Bernardo. Castlegard is the best choice. Mainoo's a better defender than Bruno. I disagree. I don't think he's... I'm waiting to see that rather than just hear it. I'm waiting to see that. I don't think that the data even agrees with that, to be honest. You know, I'm waiting to see that. Because in the real world, I haven't actually seen that. You know, that's where I'm going. Well, is that actually true or not? Because this is what the stats say. Significantly lower dual win percentage, lower possessions won. When has he been better? Paid by Ineos? But that's my point exactly, Cliff. That's because I take very often I'm saying things that aren't popular. And so because they're not the populist take, people accuse it of having a different agenda. That it has to be influenced by something else. Whether be it Amorim, be it Wilcox, be it Ineos, be it whoever. You know what I mean? But the reason I get those accusations is because it's the unpopular take. And a lot of people are scared to say anything that's unpopular for that reason, because they'll be attacked in that sense. That's what I'm saying. And it's totally true. People don't want to deal with the shit that I've dealt with on here. People don't want to. People don't want to deal with that. I've spoken to so many. Here's the thing about that, Cliff. Let me just say this. I know a lot of people behind the scenes. I'm not accusing them. I know a lot of people behind the scenes. I've seen what a lot of people say in group chats. I've seen what a lot of people say quietly. I've seen what a lot of people say off of their public image. A lot of them are bullshitters. I've seen a lot of people who sat there and will tweet stuff that is so insanely populist. And I've seen their messages in group chats, and they're like, Cobby's a bad defender, Cobby's this and that. And then I watch them speak the exact opposite online constantly. I've seen it all the time. So I'm not accusing. I know it for a fact that people do it. Just to be clear, Clip. Because I get what you're saying. I wouldn't say it if I wasn't sure of it. It's not an opinion or a baseless allegation. I know people do it. I've seen them. I've seen their opinions in private, and either they only say what's popular, or they keep the things that are unpopular and never say them. And they think it, they know it, they won't say it, and then they'll give people a hard time because it's easy to do. It's just what it is. That's just the game, right? That's just the game. But it's whatever. I get it. I get it. You live in the unpopular places. No, but it's cool. I'm just saying it is funny looking at football discourse, because more often than not, I think people will agree with what's easy. You know what I mean? At that point in time. But that's the change I would make personally. Otherwise, you try to get Ahmad on, and you're dropping one of these guys. And you could say that that's the right things to do, but I don't know. Not for me. Welcome back, Kerwin. West Ham score. West Ham score. Donnarumma catching air. I feel we do need to get Ahmad in, but I don't want to lose attackers. I don't want to lose match winners. If you take off Ahmad, I mean, if you take off Cunha, I feel you lose when you don't have Cunha. I think you miss what you don't get from him the minute that he's gone. I think you miss it instantly. And every time he doesn't play, we're going, God, I wish we had Cunha on. The intensity, the aggression, the running the ball up the pitch, progressing it from deep. I think you miss it a lot when he's not there. But that happens with a lot of us. We miss Ahmad for the same reason that we miss Cunha when he's not there. And then when Mbeumo isn't there, we don't have the pace. And then when Šeško isn't there, we don't have the crossing. You know, and you look at it and you go, we just miss everybody. I'm trying to figure out how you get all those players on, because I think you miss what they lack when they're not there. So much. And the only way that I can see to get our best players on the pitch right now, and they are our best players right now, is like this. This is the only way I can see to get all these guys on the pitch. The carrying intensity, the pace, the height. That's the only way I can see to get all these guys on the pitch, is to run something like this. I don't see any other way right now. I mean, if you were to look at it as like a 4-2-2, 4-4-2, does this not make the most sense as a 4-4-2? To me, it does. To me, it does. And that's right now. Again, it's about the balance in the midfield, you know? The reality is as I've said so many times, it's not X player's shit and this player's bad and Cobby's the worst, he's never going to play. It's balance. I don't think Casemiro-Cobby is a good match at all. I think their weaknesses play off each other so much that it hurts us. We don't have, no matter what we pick in the midfield, it's going to have big problems. Big problems. And everybody's going to have a different view in terms of what minimizes those problems. That's the main thing. And for me, when I look at it, I go, I just don't want to sacrifice forwards in that sense right now. Let's just go for it. We're winning off the back of forwards being match winners. Why don't we just go all in on that strategy right now? You know, good box defending with Maguire, good forward play to win us matches. And, you know, Karolinka's like midfield is just like vibes thing. Let's just do it. Let's just do that. you know? That's how I feel right now, because we're not controlling games anyway, so let's just go all in on the back and front and not give up attack. That's all I'm saying. That's just my view right now. I don't think it's ideal either. I think it's kind of crap, but it's got serious issues. You don't get me wrong. I'm very unhappy with Bruno Casemiro on midfield. I was pissed off with it all year. It bothered me all year. It bothers me a little less than what I've seen the last few weeks. That's the truth of it. It bothers me a bit less than what I've seen the last few weeks, because the last few weeks I've seen two players playing as one. Like one player. I've seen us looking like we're down a man every game. And I go, yeah, I did not like the Bruno Casemiro midfield. I like what we've done the last few weeks less than that. So I'm like going for what I see as the lesser of evils in this sense. I think potentially Casemiro Ugarte would work the best, but for some reason we can't have that. I don't think it's suicidal, DBX. I just think it's got different problems, but I think it's actually more likely to work at this point. I think going back to the numbers, like one of the scary parts has been how much our goal scoring has fallen off. You know what I mean? How much our chances created has fallen off. That's the part that scares me. And a big part of that is because we have fewer attackers on the pitch. That's the truth, right? Creative players create chances. There's the systems creating chances, and there's also players creating chances. More often than not, players have a bigger impact than system on chance creation. Hence, we got better players, we created more chances, we score more goals. Well, since the change in system, one of the downsides, actual downsides, is that instead of having 4 plus Bruno on the pitch, right? Ahmad, Mbumo, Šeško, Cunha, Bruno, five attackers on the pitch, we've gone down to 4. I'm looking at, could we somehow just then get another attacker back on the pitch? Because right now it's hurting us. And you could say we've been better defensively, but then the argument becomes why? Have we been better defensively? Because against Newcastle, we weren't. We were worse. You know, I think better defensively is true and it isn't. We've been conceding about the same amount of expected goals now that in over a 7-game stretch as the 7 games prior, but we've been better at box defending. A big part of that might simply be the return of Harry Maguire. Can't be underrated. Dealing with 33 crosses against Everton. We didn't have that for about 2 months there. So I think that part is arguable. I think the reason that we've dropped off chance creation wise is because we've traded Ahmad for Dalot, in essence, or really Ahmad for Kabi. In some ways, it's Ahmad for Kabi, but in the attack, it's Ahmad for Dalot. That's why our chance creation has fallen off. We've traded a wide player for Dalot, right? In the attack. Defensively, is it better because it's a 2-man midfield with fewer defenders? That doesn't make sense. Our defensive improvement doesn't actually make sense from a system standpoint. It makes sense from a standpoint of Harry Maguire's back, literally, and Lissandro was even there. I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, that's my personal take on why our defending has gotten better in recent games. Because we're playing with the 2-man midfield now. We've been playing with the 2-man midfield all year with 3 center backs behind him. Now we're playing with the 2-man midfield with 2 center backs behind him, and our defending is better. So I don't think it's like because we fixed the midfield. I think the reason our defending is better is because we have better players in the back line right now, and it's maybe more natural for them as well. You know, and that's about it for me. We don't have natural fits in terms of in the back line. The organization suits them more as it is now. But anyway, that's it. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I just think we need a change. People voted 59% for a change. Let's do one more poll. and then we'll wrap this up. If you change, where would you want to change? Ahmad for Mbumo or Cunha for hold on, let's go. Ahmad for a forward. Ugarte in. Just suggest 3 potential changes. Bruno deep. Plus Ahmad in. Which change are you thinking of? Mine was the 3rd suggestion, but which one of these changes, for the people who voted change, which one would it be that you wanted to see? Ahmad for a forward. It's tight. It's close. Close between all of these, to be honest. In the meantime, don't forget to get your picks in for tomorrow before the game is over, or before the game kicks off. Links below and also in the pinned comment. Watkins to score, have an assist. Casemiro to have a shot on target. United score over 2 goals. Villa for 4.5 corners. Under 2 goals and a half. Under 9.5 corners in the match. Okay. Those are the picks. Those are mine. You get yours. All right. So the winning of the poll is at the moment is my suggestion, which I probably influenced. But second is Ugarte in, and third is Ahmad for forward. If we wanted changes, so not a ton of consensus either way, but the plurality is Bruno deep and Ahmad in. Fair enough. Well, let's see in the morning what happens. I don't know that there'll be changes, and I'm not saying we can't win with the team that we played. We can. It's still good enough to win games, you know. I just worry that mostly I'm just worried about the performances. They've gone downhill, and I think that the reasons aren't that surprising at this point. You just hope that because the midfielder Carrick was, this time off will be him drilling into midfield how to do things. Right, and maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. I just want Kobe gone? No, I don't. I just don't think he's good enough to be a starter for a team pressing for a title as of yet. And I think that the balance with him and Casemiro is the worst possible. If we got Baleba or Kamavinga, then I think Kobe would be the best partner for one of them, which is, those are 2 of the players I'd really like to see us get. I think that the Casemiro-Kobe partnership is the worst. I'd rather see Ugarte-Menu than Casemiro-Menu right now, because I just think it's silly. I just think it's a silly... There's nothing I dislike more watching, has nothing to do with Kobe. Anybody who knows me knows my opinions on this, go back ages, but there's nothing more I hate watching than an unathletic, unenergetic midfield that strolls around and can't press and smash into people. Nothing more I hate. I'm a huge fan of athletic, high-intensity midfielders. Just doesn't mean that they have to be crap, but I think they set the tone for the team. I think they do. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Which would be a better partnership? Kobe Baleba, Gomez Baleba? Probably Kobe Baleba. Depends on how good Baleba is. Probably Kobe Baleba if Baleba fulfills his potential. Because with Gomez Baleba, I think you have a lot more defending, but Kobe has better qualities going forward than both of those players. So I feel if Baleba fulfills what he can do, it would allow him, Kobe, to express more of that attacking, essentially. Yeah, I think that the midfielders should be setting the tone in games, not letting it go around them. You know, you like Stinky Fred and Ji-Sung. Yeah, 2 of my favorite players ever. All right, everybody. See you later. Have a good rest of your day. I'll catch you early tomorrow. All right. Have a good night. Bye, everybody. See ya. Smash a like on a video on your way out.